Welcome back to class. Let's do some order of operations today. PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. No matter how you say it, it's all the same thing. It always works the same way, every single problem. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. There's 6 words, but there's only 4 steps. So make sure you understand these. The order of operations, when you get a problem, a big long problem, and you're not sure where to start, you always do these steps in this order. Parentheses, then exponents. Next step is multiply, divide, and the last step is add, subtract. Now, I want to just drill in these points. With multiply, divide, it doesn't matter if you divide first or multiply first. That doesn't matter. The way you'll figure it out is working left to right. Same thing with add and subtract. It doesn't matter if you subtract before you add or add before you subtract because it's the same step. But how do you know which one you have to do? You just have to do it left to right. Okay, so if you were in my class and you came up with a big, long, complicated problem, and you're like, Mr. Holsopple, I don't know how to do this. Here's what I'd say. I wouldn't even look at your paper. All I do is point at it and say, are there any parentheses? Work it left to right. Are there any exponents? Work it left to right. Is there any multiply, divide? Work it left to right. Is there any add, subtract? Work it left to right. Because it doesn't matter what the problem looks like, it's going to be the same steps every time. So let's get started asking those questions. Top problem. Look at that one. Question number 1, are there any parentheses? No. Are there any exponents? No. Is there any multiply, divide? No. Is there any add, subtract? Yes, there is. So we have to work it left to right. Remember, drill it in your head. You don't have to add before you subtract. It's the same step. Work it left to right. So left to right, the first thing that I see with add, subtract is right there. 5 minus 2. 5 minus 2 is going to be 3. And then continuing left to right, 3 plus 1 is going to be 4. So 5 minus 2 plus 1 is 4. Let's look at the next one. Are there any parentheses? No. Are there any exponents? No. Is there any multiply, divide? Yes. Work it left to right. Again, you don't need to multiply before you divide. You can divide before you multiply. That's okay, but how do you know? Work it left to right. So left to right, the first thing I see is right there. 8 divided by 2, that's going to be 4. Continuing left to right, 4 times 3 is going to be 12. So 8 divided by 2 times 3 is 12. Let's get some that are a little bit more difficult. So the top one. Are there any parentheses? Yes, there are. Work them left to right. So I'm going to work left to right till I find a parenthesis right there. There's my first parenthesis. So right now, all I'm looking at is this parenthesis. That's it. That's the only part of this equation that matters to me. Now, inside the parentheses, something really important for you to know. I've got a Joe in my class, and Joe is really important. Joe's important all the time. Kind of like order of operations. Order of operations is always important, just like Joe. So you might ask yourself, in this parenthesis, can I just do it any way I want, or does order of operations still matter inside this parenthesis? Answer is yes, order of operations does still matter because order of operations always matters. So inside the parentheses, we got to start all over and ask those same questions again. Are there any parentheses? No. Are there any exponents? No. Is there any multiply, divide? Yes, there is. Work it left to right. So look in here. 2 times 4, that's just going to be 8. All right, still in that parentheses. Working left to right. Are there any add, subtract? Yes, there is. Work it left to right. 9 minus 8 is 1. So all of this parenthesis right here, just work down to 1. All of that is just 1. All right, so now let's go back. We just did the parenthesis. Now, are there any exponents? Yes, no, there's not. I'm sorry, no exponents. Is there any multiply, divide? Yes, there is. Work it left to right. So first thing I see is 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Next step, is there any add, subtract? Yes, there is. Work it left to right. 15 plus 1 is going to be 16. That's it, all we got. Let's look at the next one. Are there any parentheses? Nope. Are there any exponents? Yes, there is. Work it left to right. So coming down here, 5 times 2, or 5 squared, 5 to the second power is going to be 25. Okay, exponents, done. Next step, is there any multiply divide? Yes, there is. Work it left to right. So 100 divided by 25 is going to be 4. Is there any more left to right? Nope, no more multiply divide. Next step, add, subtract. Yes, there is. Work it left to right. So left to right, we've got 4 plus 163. 4 plus 163, that's going to be 167. Still working left to right. See, 167 minus 1, that's going to be 166. All right, let's get this a little bit more complicated. Not much. So on this page, we're going to assume the same information for both of these problems. We're going to assume that y equals 7 because that's what I've told you, just y equals 7. So the directions to our problem say y equals 7. So what that means is, as I look down at this equation down here, I could just erase my y and write in a 7 because that's what it tells us y is equal to. Y is the same thing as 7. Now, one thing before I do that, Navy, 3y, that means 3 times y. So when I erase my y and I write in a 7, that does not mean 37. 3y means 3 times y, so 3 times 7 is what we're going for here. Erase the y and put a 7 in that one. Again, that's going to be 2 times 7 to the second power. So we've got a subbed in. Now let's ask the questions. Are there any parentheses? No, there's not. Are there any exponents? Yes, there is. 7 squared. 7 squared, 7 times 7 is going to be 49. Okay, let's keep going. We did the exponents. Is there any multiply divide? Sure is. Work it left to right. 3 times 7, that's going to be 21. Still going left to right. 2 times 49, that's going to be 98. Okay, next question. Is there any add, subtract? Yep, left to right. Work it. 21 plus 98, it's going to be 119. Still working left to right. 119 minus 15 is 104. That's our answer. Okay, last problem. Let's sub the 7s in for the y's down here. First question, are there any parentheses? Yep, work them left to right. So left to right, I'm coming over here and I find it right there. So that's all I'm looking at now, only in that parentheses. Order of operations still works inside the parentheses, so we need to ask ourselves, are there parentheses inside the parentheses? Nope. Are there any exponents? Yes, there is. So, no, there's not. I'm sorry. There's no exponents here. Is there any multiply divide? Yes, there is. So left to right. 4 times 7, that's our first one. That's going to be 28. And then work across. 7 divided by 7, because we're still on the multiply divide. 7 divided by 7 is 1. Okay, now we're still in the parentheses. So we've done the multiply divide. Next step is add, subtract. So let's look at that and see if there is. So we've got 28 plus 1 left to right. That's going to be 29. So all of this whole parenthesis right here, after we sub the 7 in for the y, all of this was just 29. So back to the beginning. Are there any other parentheses? No. Are there any exponents? No. Add, subtract? Yes, there is. Work it left to right. 3 times 29, that's going to be 87. All right, so that's what it is. Now, the problems are going to get more complicated than this, but the good news is the steps are not always going to be the same. Parentheses, work it left to right. Exponents, work it left to right. Multiply, divide, work it left to right. Add, subtract, work it left to right. Okay, I know you've got it. Good luck.